Hello and welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker Podcast. My name is Ross LeCane. I'm bringing my 25 years industry experience together with leading experts around the globe to give you the insights on how to live a better life and grow a profitable mortgage broking business that you are proud of. Welcome to another episode of the Billion Dollar Broker Podcast. My name is Ross LeCane. Again, we're going across to New Zealand and we've actually got the top mortgage broker for 2021 joining us. Welcome, Cameron Marcroft. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Ross. Good to be part of it.
Yeah, so you've been a franchise owner with Loan Market, you said, for the last 5 to 6 years, and obviously performing really well there in Auckland. So love to sort of dig into it. You mentioned the last 3 years you've been in the top New Zealand advisors and sort of working your way up the ranks from number 12 3 years ago, number 4 last year, and this year you said you've just been crowned number 1. So amazing. Congratulations on that. A fantastic achievement.
Thank you. Yeah, look, we're really pleased with the results, and it was something that we kind of earmarked a while back that's what we wanted to achieve, and to tick that off, really pleased.
Love it. Well, we're going to dig into sort of how you got there today and provide a lot of value to the listeners. So tell me about how you got started in your broking career.
So I spent a fair bit of, I was in the banks originally, and went from the banks to joining the aggregation group, and worked with mortgage brokers, as you do, in that BDM capacity for many years. And at that time, I guess I didn't know it, but what I was doing is honing in on my many different skills that I now have in my business, because you were naturally looking after mortgage brokers and trying to grow their own businesses. At that stage, I didn't know that I was going to get into mortgage broking. It was always going to be that hard jump. How do you go from that corporate salary to self-employed? And luckily, I took the plunge 5-6 years ago and had an opportunity to jump into Loan Market and start my own franchise. And it's turned out to be the greatest move I did.
Yeah, love it. And we were just sharing before we got on, because that was a similar background to myself, in terms of I started with Wizard Home Loans back in the day, and I was working as what they called a mobile development manager back then, and I would train the mobile brokers up for their first sort of 6 weeks in the program, and then I would send them out to the offices, and the amount that you actually pick up by learning from those already doing it. And you said you were working with the aggregators. What were some of the key things and learnings that you sort of picked up, if you think back to those days, that really got you sort of hitting the ground running when you started your broking business?
To me, it was about getting the client through the door. And so how do you get leads and build your business up? So working really closely with real estate agents, but not just, hey, I can help you sell this house and get the finance. It's also putting it back to the agent of what I can do for them, what's in it for them, not just me, and working really closely with real estate agents. Hence the reason I aligned myself with a Ray White business. Loan Market and Ray White have great synergies together across New Zealand and Australia, and I was lucky enough to align myself to the largest Ray White business in Australasia for the last 7-8 years in Remuera, Auckland. And from there, one by one, I managed just to win those agents over as their mortgage broker of choice, and still to this day have a fantastic relationship with about 60 to odd agents in that particular office.
Yeah, love it. And I love what you said there in terms of, when you got started, it's not focusing on what the agents can do for you. It's focusing on what their needs are and how you can best provide their needs. And, I talk about this in my coaching program and with my one-on-one clients that I work with. And, it comes down to having that sales process in how do I actually develop a referral partner, right? So how do I actually have that conversation? How do I understand their needs before I go out actually putting my hand out and saying, hey, give me business, right? So it's having that customer first mentality. And this point, your customer is the real estate agent, right? So really focusing on what you can do for them. And what are some of the areas where you really add value to the agents that you work with?
Yeah, and I found a lot of mortgage brokers were getting that part wrong, Ross. They were just rocking up to the agent and going, "This is what we do," and the agents were just, "Cool, great. Well, might refer, might not." So you're not getting that sort of the agents are busy people. They weren't giving you time, so you needed to come in and go, "Cool, what's in it for them?" Now, to me, it's around that vendor experience. If they're selling their property through that particular agent, we are there to assist that client into working with all banks to make sure that if they wanted to go up another level and there was other banks that had a calculated borrowing power that could go up, we were doing not only the helping that purchaser, but the vendor potentially was getting a higher value for their property. And so when we start talking about the vendor experience where the agents want to sell their property for the highest amount, and you can show ways you can do that, they started to jump on that and go, yeah, well, that makes sense. As far as the borrowing calculators, would have examples of the differences between the different banks, would have marketing material. In my early days, I'd go to the open homes, what we call in New Zealand, and just giving that added service to help them sell that property and make sure they get a good result.
Yeah, beautiful. And a lot of the brokers that I speak to don't know the way to approach, right? In terms of, you've said you obviously work with them and you position yourself as that expert, and then you show them ways. For those brokers that don't know how to approach, what's your suggestion in terms of how they would actually educate the real estate agents in what you can do, such as showing them how you can get someone from X level borrowing capacity to, Y or Z?
Yeah, so we have like marketing material that will be given to all the agents as they start, and catching up with them fairly regular around, I'll attend every sales meeting of this particular office on a Tuesday. I'll go to many different auctions. I'm inside that office regularly. So we're seeing them very often. And what we're trying to do with those, with pointing out the differences between the banks, why is it important that your clients are going to a mortgage broker as opposed to rocking up to a bank where they might not even get a loan, depends on who they see, what kind of services they're going to get. That might really impact a campaign for a real estate agent. The other thing that I think is really important is real estate agents talk their currencies, listings, appraisals, and we're now in a position where my business has matured enough to be able to give listings back to the agents. So how does that happen? Well, when we get some client picks up a purchaser picks up some marketing material at an open home, they give me a ring. One of the first questions I'm always asking is, how do you find me? And they'll say, I just picked up one of your brochures at 10 Smith Street. I can then identify who that agent is. And in my phone and in my CRM, that client is tagged with that real estate agent. So, and 2, 3, 4 years down the track, the mortgage broker or advisor is the first person, in my opinion, that finds out whether they're selling a property, because it's due to their structure, how long they're going to fix for, what are their borrowing ability is for the next stage. So to be able to say to the client, hey, cool, we can do this. Now you're going to need an appraisal on your property. Can I get Joe Bloggs to go to give you an appraisal to get the ball rolling so we can start working on that? So to be able to give listings appraisals back to the agents, that's powerful, and you'll get them referring to you if you can show that.
Beautiful. I love that. And there's a couple of things that I love about that. The first is the fact that you take the time to really put the information in your database, right? And this is a step that a lot of brokers and probably newer brokers don't realize the value. But, when you've been around a number of years, and I'm sure from your aggregator background, just talk on the power of having a good database, because I think a lot of brokers miss that point.
Yeah, it's huge. So in the early days, I'd spent a lot of time just making sure I was capturing as much information. Even though they weren't a client today, they become a client in 2 to 3 years' time. Sometimes I haven't even remembered I've had a conversation with them. They've popped up on my newsletter and my notes around where did I find that client and so forth. I think are very important. We want to thank our referrers, whether they come from our existing client base or our agents, and to go back to them and say, hey, look, we're helping John and Mary, and thanks for that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, huge.
Beautiful. Even if it's 2 or 3 years later down the track, and then once you've done the loan, then you're repaying them the favor. And a lot of people sort of ask, well, how can I actually generate referrals for real estate agents? And there's a simple question when you're doing your annual review call: are you looking at buying or selling in the next 12 months? Right? It's a pretty simple question. Are you looking at buying, selling in the next 12 months? And if the answer is yes, great. You've got a referral for an appraisal to a real estate agent.
Yeah, I think that's part of what the financial advisors in New Zealand now having to do. We need to be looking at not only their next 12 months, but what are their longer term goals with regards to that property. Do they want to get into investment property? So we're capturing that information. We're making sure we're diarising appropriately, so we are being able to help them when they're ready to jump on the next move.
Beautiful. And in terms of, so going back to the sales meeting, so you're active within the referral partners business. So you're constantly within their office. You're going to the sales meeting, and I recommend to get invited to a sales meeting and obviously be invited to present. What are some of the topics when you go into the sales meeting that you will actually present on to give them a better understanding and to help them understand finance a little bit more? What are some of the areas that you'll educate them on?
Well, firstly, we want to be able to let them know of changes that are happening in the market with banks and policies. And so that's giving them a bit of an idea of what could be challenges out there. Now that there's not only to highlight that to the agents, but it's also there to basically let them know the importance of why you're using a broker. Because if one bank's policy is tightened for a certain reason, another bank may be still open. And so that ability for going back to that vendor experience of someone going to their own bank and maybe getting shut down and going, maybe this isn't an opportunity at all. Whereas we're there to, they could be that buyer. So I think it's updating them on what's relevant in the changes in policy and so forth. The other thing that's really important is case studies, right? So Jim referred this client to me. This was the situation. They couldn't get finance through the bank. We were able to do this. 2 days before the auction, we met them. At auction, they bought the house and a great result for everyone. So those stories, when you get them, then the agent stands up and goes, yeah, that's true. I couldn't have done it without them. That was really awesome. And they're all starting to go, okay, great. I see that value. So it's a really good collaboration from the team there.
I love that, because, when you talk about a policy, there's not a lot of, personality in talking about a policy. Oh, they've changed this, right? But when you can put that the policy to and give it some personality through having it a story, the story sells, right? The story is what sells, and the story is what engages them. And obviously, if they see that you're getting success for the other agents within the business, then it's not long before they start, talking to you about a lot of their clients as well, I bet. Yeah,
just they all just, as soon as a couple of agents are using us and saying that the service is great, another couple want to join in, and it's just a matter of just continuously catching up with them to educate them on the changes of where we can help and being innovative, making sure that if there's any new ideas out there, that they're ours and so forth.
Beautiful, beautiful. What are some of the sort of nuances that you found with servicing real estate agents in particular? Like how can brokers best service them, right? Because quite often, I quite often use the analogy that real estate leads are a bit like ice, right? Unless you're onto them quickly, they melt away. So yeah, tell us some of the ways that how brokers can be successful in sort of really building these real estate agent referral networks.
So you're right. When you get the lead, it's important that you're contacting the client quickly, as well as that going back to the agent to say, hey, thanks for the lead, spoken to clients and we're working with them, just to make sure that they know that you're doing a good job. The key thing that I think with that question, Ross, is communication, and you've got to make sure your agent is updated with, because they're very nervous at the start of who they're referring to. Are you going to be doing a good job? And you earn that respect. It takes a while, and then once you get it, you're away. But the communication back to them, making sure that you are looking after them, they're looking good for the auction. You can't tell them obviously any of their financial position, but you can let them know if they're going to be there or not. And so that's pretty critical.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned that when you started out, you worked on the open houses with them. And how critical do you think in terms of building the relationship for the brokers to actually get out and do things like attending open houses and helping out with those open houses?
So from my side of it, I wanted to grow my business as quickly and as possible. I just wanted to get it to the stage like it is now, in 5.5 years, to a rock solid business. I just threw everything in it in the first 2 years, and it was hard. But at those open homes, you have an opportunity to meet certain clients that you wouldn't have probably been referred from that agent. And you also get time to really get on with that agent during that open home. If it was a bit quieter, you'd actually spend more time with the agent, and that rapport was built. So that was really critical too. The clients that you meet during those open homes, you're not going in there for the hard sell. You crack a joke, they warm to you, then you make a note of their name and you'd get the phone number, and then you'd contact them on Monday and check in, seeing whether they want any support on the mortgage side of things, and start working with them from there. And so the database grew faster from attending those, because you would maybe pick up 3 or 4 leads at an open home, do 2 or 3 of those a weekend. That's good going along with all the other stuff you're doing.
Yeah, beautiful. I can see how you quickly, grow your database, grow your call lists, and it's about that in terms of growing the business. So, and you mentioned from a volume perspective, and I was really impressed by the numbers that you shared. So you said over the last sort of 6 months, you've been averaging about 33 million in settlements per month, which is massive, right? So congratulations on that. And obviously it's taken you a number of years to get there, but I can see why with what you're doing. So in terms of, that's obviously how you've been successful in growing your business and obtaining customers and leads. I want to talk a little bit more around your philosophy around that sort of holistic service in terms of rather than treating client just as a transaction. I want to dig into that a little bit and just tell us what your philosophy around that is.
Firstly, it's to differentiate myself or the business from a banking experience that a client would have. And I really do refer to that word transaction when the bank is dealing with a client. To me, I refer to it as a long-term relationship, because we're not only there to get them into the mortgage, we want to help them get out of the mortgage. So we want to work with them long-term to reduce debt, give them the ways, check in every 12 months. Is the structure we put in place working? Do we need to recalibrate it a little bit and set it up for the next 12 months? That could be very different. As circumstances change, people need to tweak their mortgage structure to suit their needs. And so we want to be there to help them along the way. As well as that, it's important that we build these relationships up around advice, not just around, yes, we'll get you the best interest rate, but that's not what you're coming to me for. You're coming to me for that advice period long term.
And how do you do that? Because I think this is an important point, right? So how do you set up the conversation to say, hey, they're coming to me for an advice? It's not just about the transaction, because I see a lot of brokers falling into that trap that they get all the information that they need and forget about the person on the other side and what their needs are. So tell me a little bit about your process in terms of how you make it more around the advice and less about the transaction.
So there's at least 2 appointments with the clients. The first one is around the fact find and understanding their needs and listening around what they're trying to achieve. Then from there, obviously, we take all that information, and now generally we would like to sit down with a client and go through a little bit of product knowledge. There's 2 particular products. It's pretty, I think in Australia there's a few more, but we obviously have that offset and a revolving credit product. I use those 2 products as kind of setting a financial goal for the clients. So I set the 12-month sort of game plan of, okay, we're setting out to hopefully achieve this kind of debt reduction in the next 12 months due to your income, so forth. That then we sit down. So once it's all approved, the bought a property, I'll sit down and go through that structure in a lot more detail and really break into what's our potential to reduce debt. So that's the advice piece on, right, setting the financial goal so that in 12 months' time, we're checking in and going, have you got some available funds to reduce your debt that was built up in those products? Now, what's the next 12 months look like? Can we be more aggressive? Do we need to be less aggressive? So, as well as that, they're coming to you to go, what's the interest rate market looking like for the next little while, and making sure they come back to you, as opposed to just going, cool, that rate looks good, I'll just click and grab that. To me, that's not a game plan to paying your debt off. That's just sort of grabbing a rate and moving on.
Exactly. So you focus on a lot on the debt reduction strategies in that meeting. And is that annual meeting set up as sort of an expectation in the first meeting that you have with them?
Yeah, it is. And every couple or every purchaser is very different in what they need. So at the moment, we've got a lot of annual reviews, which we're doing virtually at the moment. I've got a couple of people on the team that'll be working on those, and then the advice piece coming in afterwards. So they'll get all the loan details updated, the rates and the drive. So when I'm talking to them, it's how we're getting on. Right, did we get there? No, cool. Right, next 12 months looks like then putting that structure in place, and away we go again.
And is property investment a thing that you speak to about with your clients as well?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of clients that have that mentality of paying their mortgage off and being debt free, which I quite often will challenge their thinking on that. I think it's a great for people to have those goals, but to challenge them around what is when they retire look like. Yes, they can be mortgage free and they might have a little bit of, they've saved up a bit of cash and a superannuation. But what happens if they were to leverage off that equity early on, put a structure in place where the rent paid the mortgage, and over time they accumulated and maybe had 4 or 5 properties. By the time they get to retirement, they might sell one, clear all debt, and they might be left with 3 or 4 properties earning a passive income and a retirement that might be better for them. So I do challenge clients around that, not to say, hey, you got to go do this. It's just, have you thought about a different way of, and what does your retirement plan look like right now?
Exactly. And I think that's a great question in terms of what is your retirement plan look like right now? Because a lot of brokers aren't asking that question, right? So they're not finding out, they're not going, peeling back the layers of the onion deep enough to get to, well, what is your plan, right? And then that leads to those conversations you're talking about. You know, I was big on, in my broking career, worked with property investors. I'm a property investor myself. And, you know, it was something that I was passionate about because you can make a real difference in somebody's life. And as you said, there's a better way than just, you know, paying your loan off for 20 or 30 years to reduce your debt to zero. You know, you look at the money that I'll make from my property portfolio with the growth over that, it probably could have paid off my home in 1 year rather than working for 20 years, right? So there's definitely smarter ways to do it and to have those conversations about wealth creation and talking about retirement. So I love that. I love that. So then you so that's the conversation, that's the annual review piece, that's talking about, you know, the debt reduction, the wealth creation, and what their sort of goals are. Other thing that you mentioned that you're big at is, okay, if we're going to build something, let's protect it. So talk about those conversations that you have and how you have those conversations as well.
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to there is the insurance to make sure our clients are protected, which we have a duty of care. I think every advisor has that duty of care to, you know, we're putting them into a large level of debt. So if we didn't have that chat or referred them on to a specialist to have that chat, are we doing the right job? So they could lose their job due to an illness 12 months after a mortgage and can't work for 24 months. Who's paying the mortgage? So that chat is really important to have, and we go through that at the structure time. We actually bring it up quite a lot during the first appointment. Then at the structure appointment, where we're making sure that they're aware of the importance of it.
Can you just give me an example? Because a lot of people that I speak to struggle in their sales process to have this conversation. Can you tell me how you bring it up in the conversation?
Cool, yeah. So I'll go through the structure. We're talking about everything. We've covered everything off. It's one of the last things to cover off. They're in a pretty happy mood because they've bought a house, and you know, that's a pretty cool time. So we start with the house insurance, which isn't compulsory. All the banks require house insurance. I'm sure it's probably the same over in Australia. And that they have to have that. So we give them the option of, would you like to call your company up and potentially spend half an hour on the phone listening to music, or would you like us to get someone to give you a call to give you a quote on some various options there to see if you've got some? And most people go, yep, yes, please, because they've got to do it. They'd rather someone ring them and give them some. So we have that service that's, I think, very valuable. And then once they've either said yes or no to that, then I say, cool. Now the other insurance, which is just as important, is life insurance, income protection, mortgage protection. Now this one is not compulsory, and you don't need to take it, but it is highly recommended. We have a duty of care. We're putting you into a large level of debt that if you're not protecting yourself and something did happen, what would you do? And you know, some people that don't take that cover end up having to sell their house, rent, and it's pretty nasty. So I don't put the big sell on them, but I do explain the importance of it. I'll go through products, how they work, and then you know, if they're saying, yeah, we should probably look at it, I say, look, even if you have the chat, then you can make an educated decision on what's best for you, and I can sleep at night. But so then we refer all our insurance out to a specialist to do that, and they would then talk to the clients and take them through that stage. They don't have to take it if they don't want to after that, but they've gone through that stage of understanding it, and we can tick that off our list.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that whole duty of care. Look, I'm providing the vehicle to get you into this asset or investment, but with that becomes a certain risk. So it's in my duty of care to obviously protect you in terms of what you're doing. So great, and a great way and a simple conversation to have if you raise it sort of up front and you actually have the conversation about it. I think why some people, you know, struggle to get clients protected is they're scared of having that conversation up front, or they're just focused on the transaction and not really focusing on that duty of care for the client. So I love what you do there, Cameron. It's great, and I think something a lot of the brokers can sort of take away to have that conversation around insurance as well. So I'm interested in terms of your business. So it started with you, and then you mentioned you've got a team of 9 people. Let's talk a bit about your the people and some of the roles that they play within your business.
Yeah, cool. So we started as one and had to do everything, and soon realised that I invested into my business early, Ross. I found that getting people into my business regularly has contributed to the success of the business. So when I got my first guy on board, and his name's Cameron Muggeridge, my name's Cameron Marcroft, so it's very confusing. But he's still with me, and he's my right-hand man. He came on board. Then along the way, we've grown to a team of 9. So in that business, we have what I call the engine room, which will be myself and Cam, Janelle, and Simon, and they are the loan assessors. Now they're on their way to becoming advisors as well, because we need to grow the business. And then under them, we have another 4 admin staff. And their job is to work with those assessors or loan writers, plus the refixes, the pricing, and so forth. And then I have a business manager who does everything in my business that's not related to mortgages. So whether that's working with the Ray White networks, staff leave, staff contracts, office, anything to do with that Karina would handle that on my behalf. So that allows us to focus in on what we do best.
Beautiful. I love this, and it's it's something that we talk about often, and it's someone that I definitely had in my mortgage business. But I think it's a role that a lot of brokers miss, and they try to do it all themselves, right? They try to be that business manager and look after the staff, do all the contracts, do the recruiting, implement the business plan, as well as doing everything else. So how critical has that role been within your business, and how long have you had that position of the business manager?
It's been awesome, and it was I poached her from Loan Market head office, which was a bit of a coup for us. To have someone like that in our business full time is a real luxury, but it is huge to be able to just stick to my skill set, which is obviously limited, and is mortgages. For her to be able to handle everything outside that is allowing us to focus on so much more around our particular clients and service that we're having, has built the business up a lot stronger. Karina's probably been on board about 6 months or less, and that's again a very good move for the business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think those people that are in that role where you've got, obviously you started with more your loan admin support with Cameron, and then you've gone and obviously build out that team. So now you've got multiple sitting at sort of Cameron's level, and then you've got the admin guys that obviously feed in to support those guys. And then once your team's grown, where you start having and more, and we found this, that's when that sort of key person comes in. And there's a great book called Rocket Fuel that talks about it and calls it an integrator. And I think you've got that sort of integrator role or business manager in your business. So I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that, Ross, I think what we're quite big on in the business is making sure that everyone that's in there has got quite a clear career path. I'm quite driven for the guys slowly building up their levels of expertise to down the track being an advisor. So at this stage, we're bringing in people with a little bit of bank experience, and then training them up to the next role, so that they can see a future in my business. I value my staff very highly. I think I've got very, very good staff, and the culture inside the business is another one of the strengths, and that that pleases me more than the success of the numbers. To see these guys wanting to work with us.
Definitely, I love it, and obviously you've got good retention from what you're saying. So what is, and again, it takes work, because I know I've run businesses. What work does it take to really build that culture within your business? What are some of the things that you think are really key around sort of building that culture and people wanting to come to work?
I think it's something that I don't know how how it was built. I mean, the environment that I like to work in is a pretty it's pretty high stress, but it's also enjoyable. I like to have a laugh, and plenty of abuse flying around with each other, and hassling each other, and humor, and making sure the fridge is stocked full of beer where they can help themselves whenever they want. There's plenty of respect there that they're not going to go and get off their face early on in the morning. But what I want to do is them to have a pretty happy environment that they enjoy coming to. They work really hard. So building that culture up has been really important. We celebrate our successes. So every month when we hit a personal best, we go out to dinner together. We want everyone to buy into, to the success of the business, and hopefully they're enjoying it. And I think they do.
Definitely. So when you recruit, and finding good people is a lot. So around sort of, how do you know that they're going to be a fit for your culture?
The hard one. I think recruitment is very difficult, and we've used a recruiter who's done very well for us. We've also found people in that Ray White business that wasn't enjoying the real estate side, who've come into the business and gone really strongly. The banks, most of them have come from a banking experience, and that's where that's where you're going to get the knowledge of what we do. But people, we can train people to become what they do. I think getting the right fit for the team, and making sure that they are just good people, then in the long run, you're going to have a far better team. So yeah, it's a tough one, but we've done really well at building, I think, an awesome team.
Definitely. And in terms of how regularly do you guys catch up? Do you catch up daily, weekly? What's your sort of communication rhythm within your team?
At the moment in lockdown, we're catching up 8:30 each morning for our team huddle. That's for half an hour, just to check in, make sure everyone's going okay, as well as that, just to go through my diary for the next 2 days, and my inbox. My team manage my inbox as much as they can, because I'm in back-to-back appointments. So it's just running through that, making sure there's anything in there that I need to jump on, and planning for the day. Outside of lockdown, we don't do that, but it's probably been quite an important piece of the puzzle. I guess when we're in our open plan office, we are talking a lot more about what's going on, so we're not needing to meet up as often. But yeah, I think it's very important at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And how good is it not being in your own inbox?
It's amazing. Yeah, that slows you down hugely. So if I'm in appointments all day, you just couldn't. Yeah, clients need urgent. They need to be acted on urgently. My team are on the case straight away. I don't even know there'll be a request coming through for something from a bank or whatever, and they are there to action it. And that then gives that service to our clients that, yes, I'm going to be in appointments, but you've got a real awesome team behind me that'll action stuff far quicker than I would.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, people spend on average, I think it said about 2.5 hours a day on emails. And, again, like you said, if you're doing appointments and doing a number of appointments a day and spending 2.5 hours a day on emails, it doesn't leave much time for anything else, right? So it's no wonder that a lot of brokers feels like they're chasing their tail when they've still got their noses in their own inbox. I know, when I outsourced it, and it was one of the best moves I made, for sure, to get someone else to do it, because most of the stuff, 95% of the stuff, doesn't need your input, right? It's only a small portion that you would have to actually make the decision on and respond to yourself.
You did right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, I love the conversation. I mean, there's so many gold nuggets around referrals, around the service that you're providing to the clients, around your sort of robust business and the people in your team. So, thanks very much. Before we go, I asked this, and I asked this of all my guests, in terms of if you're looking at, giving advice to somebody that's really looking at getting in the business and really, charging and being in that sort of top 1% of brokers and scaling their business, what's one of the tips that you would give to them? What's your number one tip?
Number one, there's quite a few though, so I might try and answer that in a little bit more than that. I'll try surround yourself with good people. So that means I'm answering that question in a better way, right? So surround the good people. That's your referral sources, your mentor, and making sure you're around the energy. You need energy to drive these businesses. They're hard work and they beat you up sometimes, but to have that energy to keep driving to succeed is really important. So that would be, I guess, one of a few others that I'd probably want to answer.
Definitely. And let's just go dig in on the energy bit, in terms of, I find energy comes from having like a vision, right? And so do you have a clear vision that you sort of get that energy? Because yes, it is a tough business. You're going to get knocked down, but you've got to have your eye on the prize. So just interested to hear, do you have that sort of long-term vision in terms of what you're looking to create?
I do, and it's quite funny when I think back when I did my first business plan when I was about to kick off, and it had goals, right? And you sort of write down these goals like, I want to be number one in New Zealand for loan market, and you go, it's unlikely, but I'll chuck it down there. And then there's a 5-year goal of being number one in Australasia. Again, not in my wildest dreams did I think I would achieve that, yet I put it down because I just didn't know what else I could put. Looking back, every year the business has evolved. Those goals you sort of look at and go, actually, I really want to achieve that now. And so I think the business is growing so rapidly. Like for 5.5 years, it's gone so rapidly that every time we do set our goals for the next 12 months, we smash them. Which has been pretty cool. It can't go on like that. Obviously, it's got to start to slow down, and we've just got to keep building up in different ways to grow a more successful business. So yeah, the goals have changed regularly, but some of the ones I set at the start have been achieved, which I'm very pleased about.
Yeah, congratulations. It's amazing. And, I love that you keep looking and smashing the goal, but then you keep resetting and looking. And I quite often explain it's like climbing a mountain. Once you get to the peak of that mountain, you can see where the next mountain and the next peak that you need to go. So we all need to keep resetting. So great pearls of wisdom. Thanks, Cameron. It's been a pleasure to have you on the $1 Billion Broker podcast. So if you, like Cameron, want to be in the top and that sort of top 1%, you're looking to raise your game, there's a couple of ways that you sort of can interact. One, subscribe to this podcast. It's a great free resource that you can subscribe to on wherever you get your podcasts. Number two, join us on the $1 Billion Broker Facebook page. Share lots of resources and insights. In that, just request to join. It's a private group. Or thirdly, get in touch and make an appointment and see how you can work with us in one of our programs or privately. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.